Welcome to this video on setting the parking brake on a Bentley Continental Flying Spur. This is a 2012 model. The issue that we've had is basically the caliper was seized and we didn't have the right equipment, and we couldn't take the electronic parking brake off using the tool that you normally plug into the OBD port and open the brake. So what we actually did, if I go to the car, is this is the motor here. If I zoom out, this bit here is the motor, and we undid the two Allen bolts here. There's one right down the back, if I can get a finger to point to it, up here, down there. We took those off and we managed to unseize the caliper. Now when we put it all back together, I didn't actually get the motor lined up properly on the splines going inside here. So what I used to line it up is effectively this, because what you've got on the motor here on the inside is this that goes inside the back of the piston, and it rotates either clockwise or anti-clockwise to wind the piston in and out. So what I was able to do with the motor removed was turn this clockwise, which effectively moved the piston all the way back, although the piston didn't move. But once I'd wound it clockwise all the way, I was able to use the brake winding kit, which is this thing here, using this adapter, which has got one little pin on it. The caliper itself's got 3 positions, but this one pin is enough to lock this on once it's on there. And I was able to then use a 21mm on this here, winding it back out, which put pressure as this piston went out, pushing the piston there all the way back in. And when we put it all back together, what we found was I hadn't actually lined up this, which remember has got the spline on it, into the back of the caliper. So the motor was just going whee and whining along. So the parking brake wasn't working at all on this side. So what I've done today is removed this and realigned it, put it all back together. I've now got a tool which will wind the brakes on and off through the OBD port. I wound them all off, put this all back on, wound them on, and I got another parking brake fault. And it turns out what you've got to actually do, if you remove this motor here and then push the caliper piston all the way back inside of here, what you must then do is, using your spline tool, is go anti-clockwise, so that's this way, into the back of the caliper, and wind that out until the piston itself is out far enough to push the brake pads on. So you reassemble everything, you wind this out so the brake pads are on, so that the disc itself just is locking. Then very carefully put this motor back on so that the splines do line up in the back of the piston. Put it all back together and job's a good one. All you had to do was turn the ignition off, turn it back on again, the parking brake fault righted itself. Use the diagnostic tool to just delete the codes out of there. So yeah, I hope this is helpful to somebody. If you haven't got a tool for using the OBD port, you can remove this motor. You can then put pressure onto the piston and push it back in using your brake winding tool here. But when you go to put it all back together again, just remember to put this in the back of the piston here, turn it anti-clockwise until the piston comes out just enough to put the handbrake on, then put your motor back on, and you'll have no trouble.